television program is rated TV-MA-LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, January the 28th, 2015, show number 1040. I am your host, Shawn King, from Your Mac Life, actually from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Thank you guys very much for joining us, whether you're tuned in live or whether you are tuned into the archive. On tonight's show, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com, as we usually do at this time each and every Wednesday, except for last Wednesday when my router blowed up on me. Sorry about that. Caca occurs. We'll talk to Jim about Apple earnings. Insane earnings. Huge earnings. More money than God earnings. This from a company that, so 97, let's say 97, 98. So it was 08, and it's 6, that's 7, so it's 17 years. Wow, that was hard. 17 years ago, was literally on the brink of bankruptcy, was literally losing $1 billion in a quarter. And now they are making more money than any company in the history of the planet. What a remarkable turnaround. What an incredible business success story Apple is. I don't care whether you like Apple or don't like Apple. If you don't like Apple, don't listen to the show. But it doesn't matter what your feelings are. You've got to admire the company for that kind of turnaround, for that kind of ability in being able to go from having a company like Sun Microsystems was about to buy them. Their stock price was at $7 a piece. You could buy it for pocket change. They were getting PR bailouts, not monetary bailouts, but PR bailouts from Microsoft to this point where they are, by share price, the largest, the most valuable company on the planet, making more money than anybody. Even when the sales aren't very good, they're still incredible. The sales of the iPad weren't very good. But I guarantee you, Apple sold twice as many iPads than any other company did. I'd say, I don't know this, but I'd pull this out of my butt and say Apple sold more iPads last quarter, a down quarter, than every other tablet manufacturer combined. I feel confident being able to say that. Remarkable story. Amazing, amazing story. We're going to talk about that and all kinds of other stuff with Jim. And then on our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about Westminster Abbey. No, not the one in London. The one here in Vancouver, just outside of Vancouver, in a little town called Mission, but 90 minutes outside of Vancouver. My friend Leslie told me about this. She said it was this monastery out there. I should go out and take a look at it. So I went to the website. What's the website? Website is westminsterabbey.ca. It's a terrible website. But they're monks. What do they know about making websites? They don't know about making websites. Saw some of the pictures and it looked really pretty. It looked beautiful. So I decided I was going to go for a ride. And I went to, I don't need much of an excuse to go for a motorcycle ride. So I went out here to the Westminster Abbey. Really, really pretty space. Really, really nice. Typical of most abbeys. They are in pastoral areas of the world. And typical of churches, and I'm not going to get into the whole religion thing. Not my place to talk about religion from that perspective. But abbeys are usually pretty buildings, regardless of your spiritualness or regardless of their meaning to you. And so I went out there and had to wait around for a bit to wait for the chapel to be open. And then went in and took some pictures. And we'll talk about that a little later on the show. But first, so we're in the monastery. And there's about 4 of the people there. It was a couple of tourists, and this one guy and his friend from the Philippines. The guy was a white guy from Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is just here in the general area. And then there was a Filipino, and the guy from Chilliwack loudly proclaimed that while he wasn't religious, his friend from Chilliwack was, and that's why they were there. It was like he was trying to justify why he was in the church. And he you're, again, it doesn't matter what kind of religion you believe in, you're in a place of worship. You should be in there respectfully, with quiet and peace and calm. And this guy was yelling throughout the whole church. Why are you yelling? You're just talking to your friend. He's standing right next to you. Why are you yelling? There's no need to yell. And so at one point, he asks his friend, who's that? I look around to see if there was a monk, because I didn't see any monks at all while I was there. I look around, maybe he's pointing at a monk, but he's not. He's pointing up. I look up to where he's pointing, and he's pointing to the statue over the altar. What? He says to his friend, no, up there. Who's that? And his friend says, that's Jesus Christ. And this guy from Chilliwack goes, oh, I've never seen him like that before. What? What do you mean you've never seen him like that before? It's Jesus on a cross. I don't care what religion you are. That's possibly the single most recognizable symbol in the Western world. Is Jesus on a cross. How could you not have seen him before like that? Were you raised by wolves? It would have made more sense for this guy to have said, well, I'm an alien from the planet Mongoloid. That would have made more sense than him saying, I'm from Chilliwack, I've never seen Jesus on a cross before. How could you, and this was a middle-aged guy, the guy was in his mid-50s. How could you get to your mid-50s and not recognize Jesus on a cross? It was literally head shaking. I was literally, and I walked away. I had to get to the other side of the chapel. I had to get away from this guy. I was just, how could you say those words? How could those words come out of your mouth? You've never seen Jesus. I don't care if you're religious or not. I'm not. And I recognize Jesus on a cross. It's a fairly universal symbol. It's a fairly common symbol. Wow, that was amazing. I had fun on Twitter this afternoon. My friend Leslie and I were chatting back and forth. And I saw this story on Vice.com. I'll paste the link into the IRC chat room for you folks. It's an interesting question. Are you an a-hole for ordering food in a blizzard? I posted this up on Facebook too and on Twitter. It's an interesting conversation. This comes back to the big snowstorm back east, bigger in Boston and Nova Scotia than it was in New York. But the idea that the mayor of New York had said that only emergency vehicles were allowed on the road. And somebody asked, well, what about bicycle delivery people? And the mayor said, well, those aren't emergency vehicles, dummy. But the question is it ethical to call up a pizza delivery or Chinese food delivery place in the middle of what is being called the storm of the century and have some poor schmuck deliver you a pizza? Is that ethical? Now, it doesn't matter that the pizza delivery company is making this available to you. Just because they make a service available doesn't mean you have to take advantage of the service. Is it ethical for you to put their life in danger? I don't know if the storm was that bad, but certainly slippery streets and emergency vehicles and that kind of stuff. Is it ethical for you to put another human being in, let's say, just stress, if not necessarily danger? Now, my friend Jared Earl on Twitter said, well, would you call an ambulance? No, it's not the same thing. Calling an ambulance is in no way, shape, or form the same as ordering pizza. Ordering pizza is not an emergency. If I've fallen down the stairs and am bleeding out, yes, I'm going to frickin' call an ambulance. I don't care what kind of danger it puts the ambulance guys into. That's their job. Someone said that if you don't, this guy doesn't make any money. Well, he doesn't make any tips. Quite often, these folks are working for minimum wage. And again, that's not really the point. Someone said, well, if it was dangerous, he wouldn't deliver the pizza. That's not true at all. If you've ever worked a low-skill minimum wage job or are a low-skilled person, you can't afford to lose your job because your boss says go deliver pizza and you're like, no, dude, it's dangerous out there. Your boss would fire you. And the next day, hire some other low-skilled guy with a bicycle to deliver pizzas. Brian Monroe says the other way to look at it, Shawn, is that by ordering the food, you're keeping the person employed. No, you're letting him get tips. Because most likely, if the place is following labor law, they have to pay him for at least 4 hours. Even if they send him home, they got to pay him minimum wage for at least 4 hours. But again, the point of view isn't from the bicycle driver. The point of view is from you ordering the pizza. And is it ethical for you to put someone in distress just to bring you a pizza? It means you didn't prepare for the storm. Everyone knew the storm was coming. And do you need a pizza that badly? ArcSign says, another question. Let's say you order food and the delivery guy gets mugged after leaving your door on his way to his car. Would you feel bad, guilty? I hope you would. You should feel bad or guilty. You're not responsible for it. You're responsible for him coming to your door. But you're not responsible for him getting mugged. That's the mugger's responsibility, not yours. MacMan says, I should also note that it wasn't a blizzard. It was just snowing all day. Yeah, we know. The storm wasn't nearly as bad in New York. It was certainly bad in Boston. It was certainly bad in Nova Scotia. It certainly wasn't bad in New York. We're not talking about, don't get caught up on this particular storm. In general, if it had been a blizzard, is it ethical to order a pizza and have some poor schmuck delivered to you? It's an interesting question. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, except mine. No, I'm kidding. If you have a comment, send us an email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. You guys know I love getting emails from you folks, if you so choose. Anytime during the week, whether you tune into the live show, you have a comment about anything we talk about on the show during the week, fire off an email. We'll try to get your email on the show. As always, we also encourage you to go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. On the left-hand side of the page, you can subscribe to Your Mac Life. It's a free podcast. But if you subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15, whatever it might be, it means I might be able to buy an Apple Watch. No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm buying an Apple Watch. I might change my mind when I see one in person, but it's unlikely. I don't think I'm the target market for the Apple. I think the Apple Watch is going to be huge. I think it's brilliant of Apple. It's cool. I think it's really, really interesting. Just doesn't appeal to me, personally. But, yeah, please subscribe to Your Mac Life for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month. Comes out of your credit card or your PayPal account, drops into my PayPal account, and I'm very appreciative of the support and sponsorship from the Your Mac Life audience. Later on the show, we'll talk about Westminster Abbey and shooting photographs there in our Starting Point Photography segment. Up next, though, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com, but Apple earnings and all kinds of other stuff. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King. On our phone, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple in the Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good, Shawn. You?
Good. Big question for this week. Obviously, we all know the biggest news of the week, and I want to ask your opinion on it. Sunday, Super Bowl. Who you got, Patriots or Seahawks?
Always the Boston teams.
Oh, man. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You're one of those guys.
I am.
Oh, man. Are you going to go to a Super Bowl party, or are you just going to sit home and watch it?
Yeah, no party, but I'll definitely watch.
Yeah. Now, are you a football fan, or are you going to watch this for the commercials?
I used to watch football a lot with my father.
Yeah.
And being in the U.S., football, everybody, it's craziness. So that's a little bit different for me.
Yeah.
So, a good friend of mine down here, I mean, he watches all of the games, and, we usually go out to lunch at some point through the week, and he's always talking about it. So in order to know what everybody's talking about, I started watching it a little bit again. Not a whole lot, but...
Yeah, I watch on a regular basis, too. I don't necessarily watch with any sort of fervency or loyalty to any one particular team, obviously, because I live here in Vancouver. We get a lot of Seattle news, so I'm going to be a Seahawks fan, if only because I can't stand Tom Brady. But hopefully it'll be a good... All I ever care about is will it be a good game. I like the commercials. Nowadays, you see most of the commercials on YouTube the days leading up to it, so you don't really see them during the actual game. But for me, it's a matter of will it be a good football game. That's all I really care about.
Well, I will certainly be happy to watch the game and happy to see the Pats win. That's all that matters.
Exactly. As long as you have your priorities straight. Did you know, Jim, that in the time that you and I have been talking, Apple has made $150,000 in revenue? Mm-hmm. They've got $100,000 in profit. They've sold 250 iPhones. They've sold 100 iPads. And they've sold 25 Macs in the 30 seconds you and I have been talking.
Pretty dismal, isn't it?
Pretty bad. They're doomed. Doomed, I tell you.
Clearly doomed.
The revenue rate, the numbers that Apple announced yesterday are literally mind-boggling. And it's just hard to wrap your mind around how much of everything Apple sold. Even the so-called failing products, the iPad, they still sold 21 million iPads. I said earlier in the pre-show, I would hazard a guess that Apple has sold more iPads in a down quarter than every other company has sold combined.
It's kind of crazy when you start looking at, what Apple has done. I mean, Apple could just buy the world.
They certainly could afford to buy several small companies. That's for sure. What gets me, though, is I saw this up on Forbes. There's a half a dozen Apple bears, folks who are down on Apple stock, who are still sticking to their guns. There's a guy who works for Berenberg, Adnan Ahmad, who has a stale price of Apple stock, a price target of Apple stock of $60. About half what it is right now today.
And he still has a job?
How does this guy have a frickin' job? I literally do not understand how someone could say that and have his boss go, no, dude, get out. Just pack your stuff, pack your desk, get out of my office.
Wow.
Deutsche Bank, Jeffries, there's at least 6 people that Forbes has pointed out that still have basically an abysmal rating on Apple and have for at least the last 6 months. I think anybody, because what happens is, in theory with these analysts, people take their advice and they sell or buy or hold, whatever it might be. If you take this guy's advice, you're selling Apple stock, and you have been for the last 6 months. This guy is costing you tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars, how can he still be employed?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that, but what these people are doing, what those types of analysts are doing, is keeping the. I'm sure that there are other things, but they keep that price low, and if Apple hits a bump, and they do go down, they're the only ones that saw it. I saw that.
That's
I'm
right.
so smart.
Patting himself in the back.
Yeah.
Look how smart I am. Yeah. And that's part of the problem, is because nobody calls them on this stuff, because there's no retribution, either employment-wise or analyst-wise. The perfect example is, I can never say his name right, but you always hear him on the Apple analyst call, Tony Sacconaggi and Katie Huberty are two analysts who always ask questions during Apple's conference calls. And yet those are the two of the worst performing analysts that Philip Elmer DeWitt tracks on Fortune.com. Their numbers are well below even the amateurs that Elmer Fudd tracks. If
maybe Katie should stop asking questions.
If you can't beat the amateurs, if you're a professional analyst and you can't consistently every single time out of the gate beat the amateurs, and these guys are missing their numbers by 10, 15, 20%. If you can't beat the amateurs, why haven't you been fired?
Good question.
You're costing your company money.
Maybe they are amateurs. They're just on the bottom of the scale, amateurs.
That could be it. I certainly don't get it. I don't understand how. I mean, if you or me or anyone else had that kind of poor-ass job performance time after time after time. I mean, every 3 months, these guys have their job reviews. The Apple Analyst Call is your job review. If your job is to figure out Apple and know where they're headed, every 3 months, you get tested on that. And if you're consistently wrong, if I'm consistently wrong in my job, whatever my job might be, you get fired.
Well, in fairness, I've tried to fire myself a number of times, and I keep showing up for work.
Yeah, I heard your boss is a dick.
Yeah, oh my God, you have no idea.
We talked about this on Amplified this morning. By the way, folks, if you haven't had a chance, Amplified, I don't think it's up yet, but we had a special guest on Amplified this morning, our friend Dave Mark, also from The Loop. And Dave actually, to be honest with you, made us look bad, dude.
Dave's a very smart guy.
Yeah,
I got to tell him to tone down those big words, because I can't flip through the dictionary that fast and talk.
Exactly. Yeah, it was great talking to Dave, and he definitely brought something new and different to it. So that's going to be on the Amplify once it gets posted up there. So we talked about this stuff on Amplified too. The big iPhones mean a big quarter for Apple. Apple has given the analysts lower guidance or lower numbers for the next quarter, but there's no reason to believe that the next quarter won't be better than not the last quarter, but the year-over-year quarter, a year ago quarter, right? I mean, Apple's going to continue the success going forward. You got to believe that, right?
Right. Well, there's a couple of factors that come into that. People know that there's no new phone coming.
Yeah.
So they can buy and be satisfied that what they're getting is the newest product.
Yeah.
Where things start to rumors start to hit that there could be a new iPhone next month.
Yeah.
Sales stop.
Yeah.
So Apple is pretty much taking care of that, because people know in September there'll be a new iPhone, and although sales might go down for the techies and the people that follow the industry, that's certainly made up in the following quarter, which is the first fiscal quarter, the one we just went through.
There was a story on Engadget. When did Apple become the boring one? You think Apple's boring now?
I don't think they're boring. They sold 74.5 million phones. $18 billion in profit. I mean, I think that, when Tim was on the conference call, he was probably doing a little jig inside, when he was talking. So I don't think they're boring. what other company can do what Apple does.
I think calling Apple boring is another example of, if financial analysts can't do their job properly, this is a tech writer who can't do his job properly. I don't know how you could conceive that Apple is a boring company. It's driving the entire industry. CES came to a standstill based on a rumor of an Apple product because there was nothing of any interest
True.
out of those thousands and thousands of companies at CES. The stock market moves based on what Apple might do, not even what they are actually going to do. It's the rumors of what Apple. If there's a rumor that Apple might buy a company, that stock goes through the roof. If there's
I heard that Johnny didn't like the tilt of the Earth's axis and was going to change it. So,
I mean, look what happened with Apple filed a patent for a particular kind of camera, and GoPro stock tanked. That's not a boring company, kids. That's one of the most interesting, effective, innovative companies in the world right now.
Yep.
Speaking of,
I mean, there's no argument about that. I mean, people lose their mind when they start talking about Apple, and you're always going to have the critics and the haters. And that's fine. Go ahead, be a critic. If you want to support a company that does no innovation, that just copies whatever else is out there, Samsung is there for you to support. Go ahead.
Well, one of the air quote logic behind this Engadget story was the fact that Microsoft brought out an exciting announcement last week or a couple of weeks ago, the Surface Hub and the HoloLens. Well, I wouldn't call it exciting, first of all, but for the Engadget writer, Aaron Sopoporis, to him, that's exciting. To me, that's just Microsoft doing what Microsoft does, which is bring out perceived products that aren't real yet. There's no ship date. There's no real product yet. Bring it in front of the world's tech press. Let the tech press run with the hype over these imaginary products. That to him seems to be exciting.
Now, if I were Microsoft, and I'm being as serious as I can possibly be here, I think that Microsoft's problem is on the VP level and the level below the VP level. Mm-hmm. Everybody there needs to go. Everybody. Fire them all.
Why?
Because they're the ones that are ultimately making the decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're the ones that are coming out with these products over the last decade that suck. And they're driving Microsoft right into the ground.
Yeah, true.
Those are the ones that are making the decisions to say profit is the number one priority. So let's skimp on components and put out, a dismal product. They're the ones that are coming up with the strategies for the company, like the Surface, that clearly isn't working. Microsoft needs some new blood, but it's not at the programming level. There's some smart people at Microsoft, and they're programming what they're told to program, and they're building and designing based on the decisions that are being made from above. Those two levels of management are killing Microsoft.
You definitely get a feeling that they don't know where they're headed. I think the announcements that they made with regards to Windows 10 and them trying to amalgamate all the various versions so that one OS will work on all their platforms is an interesting idea. I think it's going to fail too. I
gave Microsoft credit when they came out with, doing something a little bit different, but still going to fail.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why they're going to fail is that they've lost the imagination of the public. The public has seen that they can do what they want to do computing-wise, and I say computing and not computer, computing-wise with a variety of other devices, whether that be a tablet, whether that be an Android phone, whether that be an iPhone. People are finding out, you know what? I don't need a PC anymore. I don't need Microsoft Office anymore. Yes, some folks do, and Microsoft will always have the enterprise market. I think that's pretty solid for them. They're certainly going to have point of sale, and they're certainly going to have a lot of retail environment. When it comes to consumers, I think a lot of consumers are discovering, you know what? I no longer need to buy these products. The machine I bought 2 years ago or 3 years ago, all I'm doing is email on it. All I'm doing is web browsing. I don't need a new operating system. I don't need a new computer. I'm okay with where I'm at.
Yep.
And
it's true. I mean, you can get Office if you want on the iPad, or you can do all kinds of other things. But, more and more I see business people traveling with an iPad,
yep.
and they use it more and more.
Yep.
I don't know anybody that just travels with an iPad, but to me, that's not what it's for. When I get to my hotel room and I need to sit down and do some work, I'll open up my MacBook.
Yeah.
But what do those other poor people do? They have to open up a Dell.
Poor schmucks.
I know.
You got to feel bad for them.
Your company hates you when they give you a PC laptop. I mean, that's like saying, we have all the faith in the world into you, for you, but we're going to make sure you fail. Here's a PC laptop.
5 years ago yesterday, Apple announced at Macworld Expo the iPad. Do you remember that keynote? You were there. I was there. You remember it?
I was there.
It's interesting thinking back on it. I watched a couple of clips of the announcement. There certainly wasn't as much energy in the room as there was for the iPhone announcement in 2007. Although we were all still very excited over the iPad, over the possibility of the iPad. That a lot of us realized, no matter what the mainstream tech press said, this wasn't going to be just a big iPhone. We knew that. We knew we were going to be able to do other things with the iPad. 5 years later, has the iPad fulfilled that promise that we saw in that room 5 years ago, Jim?
They sold 24.5 million of them in 90 days.
So you're saying it's a stupid question?
Well, I know that a lot of people are down on the iPad, and I think that's wrong, because I think the people that are down on the iPad don't understand the market that the iPad is filling.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand, then you shouldn't talk.
Yeah.
So, the iPad is, and we've talked about this before, the iPad is that device that's kind of replacing a computer. It's becoming a semi-computer where, some people that wouldn't have purchased the computer anyway are now purchasing iPads. And, you had some old people. I know some that, no way they wanted a computer. And, now iPads, bring it on. We've seen the very young parents buy iPads for their kids. This is great stuff.
The only thing I remember about, and reading this Mashable article brought it back to me, the only thing I remember distinctly thinking that people were predicting about the iPad that I not knew, but thought would be wrong, was the idea that the iPad would save the publishing industry. That everybody was going to move en masse away from print into digital. We were all going to read our magazines on iPads. There were going to be these whole multimedia extravaganzas on the magazines. There was talk about Sports Illustrated where you could tap someone's name and you would get all their lifetime stats. You would get video of their highlights. That didn't happen. But I don't know if that's the fault of the iPad. Now, you are a digital publisher, Jim. Do you think that's the iPad's fault? Is it Apple's fault? Is it our expectations' fault? Or is there nothing going to save the print magazine industry?
Well, at this point, I don't think that anything's going to save the print industry.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I mean, I just don't think that can happen. And I think part of the blame lies in the print industry itself.
Mm-hmm.
They screwed up.
Did they screw up in sort of the same way that the music industry did by ignoring the potential of MP3 and ignoring the potential? I think it's different from the point of view of, I'm still buying music. I'm just buying it in a different format. I'm not buying magazines anymore. I've just stopped.
Well, that's a problem.
Except for very specialized magazines that also have a very specialized thing I want in them. I get and I'm a huge magazine fan. Did we lose Jim? Sounds like that was Jim going away. I heard the bloop bloop. It was Jim going away. Come on, Skype, come on back. Gonna call Jim. Jeez. Sorry about all that noise. Do 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 Says connecting. Ain't nothing happening, but it says connecting. Jim Dalrymple. Connecting. Oh, there we go.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's okay. I thought it was.
I
thought it was just a bad.
I hit the button.
Ah, it was your fault this time. Ha ha ha!
I mean, you must have hit the button.
Okay, that's more likely anyway. But yeah, I've stopped buying print magazines. I was a big fan. At one point, I had 30 magazine subscriptions. When I was living in Nashville, I had 30 subscriptions to magazines. Now I have no magazine subscriptions. I'll go to a bookstore occasionally. I'll go to the magazine rack. I'll look at my motorcycle magazines or my photography magazines. And unless there is an article or information in there that's worth the purchase price, I don't buy them anymore. And I don't get any of those things on digital either. I think that's the key. It's not like I've switched from print to digital. I've completely turned off print.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Yep. And when you look at some of the magazines you can get for iPad and iPhone, they're basically PDF documents.
Yep, exactly.
And they're trying to charge us, an outrageous sum of money for a PDF document.
Yep.
No, screw you.
I think that's the big key. I think that they assume that their audience, all the audience wanted was their print in electrons. But people want they want a magazine that reflects the age we live in now. I want a magazine where I can double tap on someone's name and their stats pop up in Sports Illustrated, or a video of their career highlights pops up. I want it. The problem is that's a whole lot more expensive to create than a print magazine, which doesn't have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got that right.
So it's I think you're right. I think the day of the print magazine certainly has gone past us, and I can't see digital replacing them. I think that for the most part, print is dead. It just may not know it.
Well, I do think that there'll be a resurgence of magazines, but it's not coming yet.
I think it's gonna go a whole lot lower before it goes much higher.
Well, there'll be a lot of print type magazines that go out of business for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's just the consolidation of the industry. We've seen Macworld magazine, the print edition, go away in favor of a digital version. Mac User magazine is now also gone with no digital version. So there's going to be a lot of upheaval before we finally hit the bottom of this.
Yep.
Speaking of upheaval, I know you are new to the California area, and therefore I assume you're driving around. You're probably involved in the driving culture down there. Do you use a GPS to get yourself around?
Yes.
Do you use your phone GPS or another specialized GPS?
My phone is a specialized GPS.
No, I mean a dedicated GPS, like a Garmin or a TomTom or something like that.
Why would I do that?
Well, there are a number of reasons, but you don't, so we'll move on. Do you use Apple Maps to get from point A to point B, or another piece of software?
Apple Maps.
See, I've used Apple Maps. I use Google Maps. I use pretty much all of it because I'm a GPS nerd. I can't find my map. I can't find my ass with a map and a flashlight. So I always want to find new and different ways, better ways to get around, especially riding on the motorcycle. Have you ever used the app?
Let me give you a hint. It's behind you.
It generally is. Thanks very much, Dad. Have you ever used an app called Waze?
I looked at it, but I never really liked it that much.
Yeah, the interface I'm not real crazy about. I'm going to test it out a little bit more this coming weekend, but I'm not really nuts with the interface. Have you seen the story that police departments across the country are decrying a police reporting feature in the popular GPS app Waze, saying it puts officers' lives in danger by potentially helping cop killers find their targets, calling the app a police stalker. Some are even attaching it to the deaths of 2 NYPD officers last month, although there's no proof of that. What it is that when you're driving around with the Waze app open, and you can do this with the Cobra radar detector, you can do it with the Garmin radar detector, not radar detector, GPSs and radar detectors. If you see a cop, you tap a button and it reports the cop's presence. The police don't like this. What do you think about that? Should we be allowed to warn other motorists?
They didn't like radar detectors either.
That's true, and they're illegal in some places.
They're illegal in a lot of places. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's something new that cropped up, but you know what? If this doesn't do it, then there'll be an app to do it, and if that doesn't do it, there'll be something else to do it. You know, there's always going to be something. Technology, and then government organizations do not catch up anywhere close to the way the technology moves.
Yeah.
So.
But is it okay for us to track the police? Is it okay for us to warn other motorists, hey, there's a police road check up there. There is a speed trap up ahead of you, so slow down. Is that okay?
Well, I saw your take on it, so I know what you think.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I don't know.
See, because
I don't know. I wouldn't see it anyway because I don't use that app.
Well, part of the argument for using these kinds of things is if the point of a speed trap is the wrong word. If the point of a police officer in a certain location trying to get people to slow down, for example, here in Vancouver, there are a couple of notorious speed zones where a lot of accidents happen. People speed through these areas. So the cops on a regular basis will set up a radar detector in that area and pull cars over. What they're trying to do, according to the police, is just to get people to slow down through this area of the city. Well, whether that be a school zone, whether that be a residential neighborhood, whether that be, for whatever reason. That's what the cops are saying. If that's true, the cops shouldn't have a problem with us warning other motorists to slow down in that area.
Wow, you're very good.
Well, believe me, I've been having this conversation when I was in the States many, many times. The problem is, the other side of this coin is the cops don't want you warning people because speeding tickets generate revenue.
Well, that's true.
If you tell 10 people don't speed through this block of town, that's 10 tickets the cops can't write. And with the average price of a ticket being $100, it's $1,000 that local police force no longer has.
Right.
So I think that's one of the reasons why the police are up in arms with this. This whole cop killer thing, I think, is just a smokescreen. I think it's typical of law enforcement when they try to scare people into doing what they want us to do for them. Because it's okay, apparently, for the government to track us. It's okay for corporations to track us. But it's not okay for us to track them. That's not fair.
So like the FBI saying, if you don't let me into your iPhone, then the next child killer is going to get away with it.
Exactly. Or the British
iPhone kills babies.
Or the British government saying we're going to try to ban iMessage because it encrypts messages back and forth, and that's something that the bad guys would use.
Yeah.
With absolutely no proof of any of this kind of stuff.
Correct.
See, I'm certainly of the mind that if you get caught speeding, that's your own fault. You generally, 99% of the time, know what the speed limit was in the area you're in. You know where you were speeding. You made that decision to speed. I have no problem with
Yeah.
that. But I also have no problem with someone warning me that there is a cop down the road, whether they're flashing their high beams or whether they're telling me by an app.
I mean, when I was a kid, you'd see people all the time flashing their headlights as you're driving down the highway. You knew that there was a cop coming. That's a low-tech way of making sure that people knew that there was a cop there.
Have you ever flashed?
So now we have GPS and an app to do it for us. Okay, well,
Have you ever flashed a
it's
cop?
the same thing. Have I ever?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I probably would have been on the other side of the highway.
Well, no, I've flashed a cop one time. I was warning somebody down the road that there was a cop, and so I flashed my high beams at him, and the cop coming down the road, it was an unmarked police car. I didn't know. The car coming in the other side hit his lights for a second. I was like, oh, shit. I just warned a cop about a cop.
Wow.
Yeah. In some places.
Only you could do that.
Yeah, no kidding. That's the kind of luck I have. Don't
even ask me if I've done that, because that's only something you could do.
There's my life in a nutshell right there. Trying to be a nice guy, trying to be a nice guy and help somebody out. And I'm the idiot flashing the cop.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something like I said. There's been issues about this in the States for a long time, but whether or not we should be warning other people about these speed traps. And one of the things is down in the States, it's even worse than it is up here in Canada. I remember being places in Georgia where there was a sign that said 40 miles an hour, and then literally 10 feet later, there was another sign put up by the local town that said 20 miles an hour. And there's a cop on the other side of that sign busting everyone for speeding because you didn't have time to slow down. Those are speed traps. Those are revenue-generating speed traps. And those I have a big problem with.
I got caught in one of those
down south
on the bridge in Halifax. They have a 70 kilometer an hour sign, and then all of a sudden it drops down to 50, without any warning of it. And the cop was just sitting there with a radar gun at the end of the bridge.
Yep.
So, I got nailed.
The cops here in Vancouver are notorious for parking their radar truck at the bottom of this really long hill. This is like a 2-mile long hill down Boundary Road, and you can't help but speed. Otherwise, you're riding your brakes the entire time down the hill, and the cops sitting at the bottom of the hill pulling people over by the dozens.
Yeah.
Now, the reverse is true. I have a problem with this with regards to the Waze apps and things like that. If they warn people about drunk driving roadblocks or breathalyzer roadblocks.
Yeah.
Now, that I have a problem with. That I don't want you to know. I want you to go through the breathalyzer roadblock because that's obviously they're both safety issues, but I'd much rather keep drunk drivers off the road than keep speeders off the road.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Yeah, I think it might be a little hypocritical of me, but it's the way I think about this is speeding, and if only because speeding is something I do all the time, and drinking and driving is something I never do. So maybe it's just my own personality. Hey Jim, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to let you go. Are you an asshole? Okay. Are you an asshole for ordering food in a blizzard? If you're in Halifax and you were in the storm that just passed this week, are you a jerk for ordering pizza delivery?
Absolutely.
You're still going to do it, though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Now, if you do that, you better tip the poor kid good.
No. Double the amount of the pizza.
Oh, exactly. That's a $20 tip easy. If you make some poor schmuck ride his car or his bicycle to deliver you your lazy-ass pizza in the middle of a snowstorm, you better give that kid $20 at the very least.
Yeah.
Folks, we've been talking to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Don't forget, Amplified will get posted up hopefully later tonight or tomorrow. Follow us on Twitter or check out loopinsight.com. We had our special guest, Dave Mark, on Amplified this morning. Had a lot of fun with Dave, so you definitely want to check that one out. Jim Dalrymple from The Loop, thanks for joining me, buddy.
Thanks, Shawn.
Have a good night. See ya.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that Jim is at least willing to admit that he's a jerk for doing it, for ordering food in the middle of a blizzard. If you own up to it, you can be more of a jerk. He's owning up to his jerkness. That's good. I like that. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't make some poor minimum wage schmo get in his car, get on his bicycle, and come to my house in the middle of a blizzard just because I was too frickin' lazy to prepare ahead. Part of it is because back home in Nova Scotia, it's got to be the same in the States, but certainly I remember as a kid in Nova Scotia, you'd hear about these storms coming a day, 2 days ahead of time because they would hit the town, the province to the north of you, Newfoundland, or they would hit the province to the west of us, New Brunswick. So you knew it was coming. So you'd go to the supermarket and you'd buy a bunch of food. My dad would go and buy a bunch of beer. My mom would go and buy a bunch of rye and boxed wine. Boxed white wine. Oh, God. And we'd buy frozen pizzas and you'd buy, whatever it was you wanted to buy. You stocked up. And then when the storm hit, they declare a snow day. And the kids would all be happy and we'd go out and play in the snow and come home and have hot chocolate and Mom would make meatloaf. Or frozen pizza or whatever it might be. We were ready for it. I think ordering pizza, ordering Chinese food for delivery means you weren't ready for it. You weren't prepared for the event. And you don't need delivered food that badly. Even if you have no food in your home, you can last out the blizzard. Okay? You can, most of us have enough body fat. We can last a week without actually eating. You're going to be fine. So what it says is that you're a jerk who can't prepare for these kinds of emergencies, these kinds of events, and now you're expecting someone else to take care of you. That's, to me, the problem with this. I think it's also just a fun question to ask people. By the way, ArcSign, you mentioned something, let me scroll back up, about Apple guidance. ArcSign says guidance for next quarter is nearly equal to the Christmas quarter 2013, one Christmas ago. Now remember, the Christmas quarter are Apple's biggest quarters. So their guidance for their lowest quarter, which is the quarter after Christmas, Apple's guidance for their traditional lowest quarter is nearly equal to what they did a year ago for their best quarter. That's just mind-boggling. One Christmas ago was $55 billion was the target for Christmas 2013. 55 billion is this quarter. $57 billion was the target for 2013 Christmas. Just unbelievable. I just can't really comprehend the numbers that Apple is putting up. And again, like we said, Brian, I forgot to ask Jim about Apple Pay and Starbucks. Damn it. Somebody, you know what, Brian, send me an email and we'll try to remember for next week. Because the discussion that Brian and I think ArcSign and those guys were in the RC chat room at the time was which companies will join up with Apple Pay in 2015. And Brian was saying that Starbucks might be one. I don't think Starbucks will. I think, and yeah, you're right, Brian. I'm getting Jim's opinion, but that would be interesting. Because Starbucks has already got a payment system in place that they've spent a lot of money on, a lot of branding on, a lot of resources on, with a pretty good app. And I know people who love their Starbucks card. I don't like it because you're giving Starbucks a $20 loan, interest-free loan. But Starbucks loves it because Starbucks gets so much data off of you, from you. And don't think of the data as being just from you, although it's completely linked to you. It's in no way, shape, or form hidden. They have your email address. They can track you through the day from which Starbucks you go to. They can track your spending habits. They know whether every morning you buy a latte and a muffin. Maybe they want to push a particular kind of muffin next month. So they'll send you an email saying, hey, if you buy this kind of muffin, you'll get 25% off or whatever it might be. Apple Pay does not give them that kind of information, does not give them that kind of data, and does not give them a $20 interest-free loan that they can aggregate with the other 10, 50 million people who are using the Starbucks card and literally earn interest on that money. That money goes into a big bank account for Starbucks. And because it's such a huge amount of money, even if they're making, I have no idea about interest rates. Let's say it's 0.5%, 1% for math's sake. They're liably making $1 million a day on interest alone from Starbucks cards. That's real money. That is real money that Starbucks will not give up. Will not give up. MacMan, I don't get why the hell Target is going to use Apple Pay for online purchases, but Current C in stores. Well, MacMan, the reason is because, remember, Current C is 2 years old. Those companies signed that agreement with Current C 2 years ago, long before Apple Pay was even a glimmer in the media's eye. So Target signed the contract for their retail stores. They didn't sign the contract that included their online stores. So Target is kind of covering its bases and saying, well, we don't have to use Current C for online. We can use something else. And something else is going to be Apple Pay. We had an interesting conversation with this on Amplify this morning with Dave Mark, talking about, do you, if you are, and we don't have Apple Pay, well, no one has Apple Pay except the Americans. And Dave Mark was saying that he doesn't believe people will change their shopping habits just to use Apple Pay. So we know CVS doesn't have Apple Pay. Rite Aid does. Given equality among everything else, if the CVS and the Apple and the Rite Aid are the equidistant from you, they have the same product, the same price, would you consciously choose to go to Rite Aid over CVS? I gotta think most people would say yes. Now, change some of those parameters. If you have to go out of your way to get to your local Rite Aid, whether it's another bus trip or another further in the car ride, would you still do that? What if the Rite Aid price was lower? Would you do it? There's so many variables here. Mosquito says, not if you have an existing CRM relationship you feel invested in. His Shadow says, website not showing latest. His Shadow, sorry, not what you're talking about. Your Mac Life website? It should be showing the latest. What the hell? All right, how did I screw that up? I'm sorry. I thought I had checked this earlier, and it was up and running. It's not on the main page. You guys are correct. Thank you very much for that. Why didn't I click that button? It's one button, and it's right. Boom, there. Boom, there. All right, it is now. Sorry about that, guys. I checked the live page, not the macro page. Email me to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know, for you guys who use Apple Pay, does it change your buying habits? Would you go to a store simply because they have Apple Pay and their competitor doesn't? Home Depot versus Lowe's. Target versus, I don't know, whoever Target's competitors are. CVS, Rite Aid. I think if it's not out of my way, I think, for example, I'm out and about and I'm driving home. I think, oh, shoot, I have to get some toothpaste. If I'm driving the way home and I know on my route home, one strip mall has a CVS, another strip mall has a Rite Aid, I'll drive to the Rite Aid. I may not go out of my way, but if it's on my way home, I'll go to the Rite Aid. Now, maybe, yeah, that's right. Mosquito, you said not if you have an existing CRM relationship you feel invested in. I'm not sure what that means. CRM, customer relation? Not sure. MacMan says, if I'm used to dealing with a certain pharmacist, I'm not going to change willy-nilly. Interesting, MacMan. And maybe that's part of it is for me. I don't have a relationship with my pharmacist. I haven't used a pharmacist in God knows how long. So I don't have that relationship. So maybe that's something I hadn't thought of. Is that if you've built up a rapport with the staff or with the pharmacist or things like that, then that might change your thinking. Mosquito says CRM is customer relationship management. Stores will create a frequent buyer benefit of some kind, tracking purchases and issuing rebates. I don't doubt that Apple will do that eventually with Apple Pay. I don't see that being a problem from an Apple point of view. It might be a problem for Rite Aid. Rite Aid might want to say, Rite Aid right now could say, you get 2% off using Apple Pay, or 5% or whatever it is. But Rite Aid can't send you targeted flyers because they knew you bought ibuprofen last week. So I see what you're saying there. Mosquito, it seems to work. People stick with something if they think they're working towards a goal, even if it's just a free cup of coffee. It's true. Good points, guys. Email me at onair@yourmaclifeshow.com if you want to talk more about this kind of stuff. In our starting point photography segment, I mentioned earlier that I had gone to Westminster Abbey. No, not that one. Not the one in London. The one here in British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver. A lovely little spot called Westminster Abbey. It's in a little town called Mission, British Columbia. WestminsterAbbey.ca is their website. It's an awful website, but they're monks. Really know about website building. My friend Leslie had told me about the Abbey and said it's really pretty. So I went to the website and saw some pretty pictures and thought, well, you know what? I want to ride the motorcycle up to the Abbey. If for no other reason than it's a nice drive. It's 90 minutes, an hour outside of town. I can take the back roads and sort of meander my way up there. Now, from experience, I know that abbeys are almost always fairly remote, often in very pretty areas of the land that they reside in. Sure, there are some abbeys that are downtown of cities, but for the most part, abbeys are outside of towns. And so I knew it was going to be a pretty area just to go and ride in. But then I saw the pictures on the website and thought, oh, the Abbey itself, the church itself looks really nice. I want to go in there. So I ride up to the Abbey, and it's wintertime, although it's fairly mild. It's 45 degrees outside. It's fairly mild, but it's still wintertime. So the trees don't have leaves on them. It's kind of drab. Their gardens aren't landscaped, so it's not very pretty on the outside. It will be in the springtime. I'm definitely going to go back in the springtime. And so I go up there with the idea of seeing what kind of pictures I can take. And the first thing I see as I stand outside the Abbey is the bell tower of the Abbey. And there's no bell in there, actually. I hate that they don't have bells in them. I saw a bunch of speakers, so it's a recorded thing, which kind of ticks me off. But so I'm standing on the church itself wasn't open yet, so I'm waiting. And that's the lesson of this starting point photography segment: patience. You have to have patience when you're being serious about your photography. Not being a serious photographer, as in getting paid for it, things like that. But when you want to get better at photography, you have to learn patience. You often have to learn to wait for the photograph, which is something that took me a long time to kind of wrap my head around. Because you stand outside of an abbey, and you look up to the bell tower, and you see this picture, and you think, oh, I'll take that picture. Click. Now, I didn't even notice in the picture until I opened it up to edit it in Lightroom that there's a moon in that picture. I don't know if you can see it on the video. Let me see if I can open this thing up and show you guys on a zoomed in look of this thing. Right there in the lower left-hand corner, there's a half moon. You can see it just above. So there's the the full view. So just above the building. And it was, I didn't realize that. I thought, that's kind of pretty. So I walked around the bell tower a few times, seeing if I could get different shots of the moon. The moon wasn't in the right, ideally what I wanted to do was get a shot of something in between. So when I go back, what I'm saying is when I go back, now I know the moon will be there. I'll go back and see if I can't get a shot of the moon inside the bell tower. You know what I mean? The moon, an angle of the moon where the moon is situated inside the bell tower. So I waited around. For about half an hour. And finally the church was opened up. And you walk inside, as you're walking on the outside, you can see the stained glass on the outside. So I walked around on the inside, and it was beautiful inside. The columns and the arches that you see on the video, on the pictures, that's all concrete. It doesn't look like concrete in the pictures, but when you're up close and personal to them, you can see that those are all concrete pillars, and you can touch them and feel the concrete of them. But because of the way the room is built, it doesn't feel cold and dark and damp like you'd think concrete would be. So I took this picture, and I walked around for a little bit. I knew there was something about this picture that I wanted to see more of. That there was something about the picture that just didn't really grab me as much as I wanted it to. And it wasn't until I waited, literally standing in that one spot, and I waited for probably 10 minutes. Just getting this thing pulled up so you guys can see it on the video. I probably waited about 10 minutes for this image to appear because I thought it's going to happen. And what it is, did you see that on the right-hand side? Here's the before picture. Here's the after picture. See how the sun is coming through that one window on the right-hand side? I had to wait for that. I had to anticipate that. I had to see that before it happened. I was literally standing there in that one spot and thinking, the sun is up there. If I just wait here for a bit, I wonder if the sun will come down into that window. You can see I'm standing in almost the exact same spot. I haven't moved too far away in these two shots. There's the before shot. And there's the after shot. Oops, sorry. And there's the after shot. Patience. Wait for it. Envision it. Think about it. Imagine how it's going to happen. And then wait for the shot. Again, probably 10 minutes. I waited there for that shot to happen. Same with this shot. It's the same kind of thing. Now this is facing the other direction in the Abbey. And I waited for the light to hit on that left-hand side so it would illuminate the stained glass on the inside. And then this shot. I love the way this shot came out from the point of view of the altar, how red that altar is. I think this one came out really, really nicely because I waited for the shot, anticipating that this altar would show up in contrast to the blue of the sky and the blue of the stained glass, along with the light that was coming in from behind us. It was a matter of me looking at the stained glass and seeing, okay, that stained glass there is reddish. And that stained glass over there is bluish. Well, I want a red effect. So I turned around looking to see where that light was coming through from the stained glass behind me and to see how it was illuminating the space around me. And I probably took I was in the chapel for about an hour. I probably took 200, 300 shots. Different angles, but mostly waiting for the light to happen. Seeing the shot ahead of time. It wasn't just a matter of walking up, going click, and then walking away. It was envisioning the shot before I took the shot. Seeing in my mind's eye this picture. I literally saw this. My best pictures are always exactly that. I saw the picture before I took the picture. I imagined what the picture was going to look like before I actually took it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but in the picture, I actually framed up the bell tower in the window, the ceiling of the chapel. And again, that was intentional. I wanted that shot that particular kind of way. So it was an example of seeing the shot beforehand, envisioning the shot beforehand, and then waiting for the shot to happen, being patient. And part of patience is, I knew I wasn't in a rush. I knew I had all day long to hang out there. Didn't have to be anywhere. I didn't have to rush off to another appointment or catch a tourist bus to go to the next Abbey or the winery or whatever it might be. So I had the luxury of waiting too. I also have the luxury of knowing that I like this space now and to go back to it. One of the interesting things I've heard from many, many photographers that I had never thought of before is many of them go back to a location over and over and over and over again. They'll scout a location, then they'll go shoot it. Then they'll shoot it at different times of the day, different times of the year. I know I'll probably go back to this location. Now, the interesting thing is, the other thing is, we always talk about sunrise and sunset. I don't know if these shots would have come out very well if it had been sunrise or sunset. Because I think the sun would have been too low in the sky to illuminate this way. This was around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So the sun was high enough that it could shine down through the stained glass. So I definitely want to go back again between 11 and 2 o'clock. 11 to see if I can't catch the sun coming through the other side, through the blue of the stained glass. And then, hang around for a couple hours and then catch the sun coming from the red side again too. So patience. It's very, very important when you're serious about your photography to be patient and let the shot happen. Let it be organic. Rather than just running in, snap, 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 and running away again. Let the shot happen in a natural kind of way. I told this story before during the pre-show that there was a guy there who pointed up to this statue and said, "Who's that?" Apparently he didn't recognize, didn't understand who the guy on the cross was. He literally did not know who the guy on the cross was. His friend had to explain to him that it was Jesus Christ. That's just literally mind-boggling. Someone born in Canada, he said he was from Chilliwack, somebody born in Canada, not raised by wolves, did not know the symbolism of Christ on a crucifix. It's terrifying. Now, there's an interesting comment. The Mosquito says, Shawn has a degree of patience for shooting images I can only envy. Thank you for that. But I'm that way because I know what will happen. When I first started shooting, I was the same as everybody else. Just click and you'd walk away. Click, 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 and you'd walk away. It wasn't until I learned about patience, read about it, talked to other photographers, saw it in action, saw it by accident. Like just the perfect example was when we were in the Orpheum, a theater here in Vancouver, and we're just standing around. There was a stained glass window behind me, and I didn't see the shot at the beginning. It didn't resonate with me at all when I first saw the shot. And I'm just standing there talking to some other photographers about the Orpheum, about the place that we're standing in. Are you getting any good shots? You see any neat pictures? And as I'm standing there, I'm sort of looking around, seeing what I can see. And I'm trying to find this picture so I can show you, Mo. There it is, Orpheum. Ah, crap. But anyway, so the shot wasn't there when I was initially looking for the shot. I looked at that space and didn't see the picture. And it wasn't until I looked at the space and the light changed, the atmosphere changed, that I saw this picture. This was literally maybe 15 minutes from before. The sun came out. It lit up the stained glass in the window. It made the chandelier more interesting. I'd taken a picture of this beforehand and thought it was a boring shot. Then the sun came out and illuminated the stained glass and made it look a real pretty picture. It's something you have to learn, Mo. It's not something that comes naturally. You have to force yourself sometimes just to stand and wait for a shot or to wander around for the shot. It's not something that necessarily comes naturally to me or any other photographer. You're busy. You have things to do. But one of the things is, Mo, I go out with the idea of shooting. The shooting isn't a secondary, tertiary activity. Oh, I'm going to go to this museum and I might take some pictures. No, for me, it's I go to the Orpheum to take pictures. I go to the Abbey to take pictures. That's my goal. So that helps with your patience too, by the way. Having that goal in mind. You're not being distracted by the other things you have to do to catch the tour bus, to make sure the kids are having fun, to whatever else it might be. I'm going to shoot, and that's my goal. And therefore, I can have the patience. Mosquito, I guess it's not something I'm accustomed to. I could use a decent photo walk. Absolutely. And then that's absolutely true. It's something you have to practice, something you have to get used to, something you have to learn to do. And you keep saying you use a decent photo walk, meetup.com, do a search in New York City for photo walks. You'll find dozens of them, I guarantee you. You will find all kinds of photo walks for you to join up, for you to have fun with, to meet other people, to meet beginning photographers, professional photographers, whoever it might be. You will find them. Oh, this is really important. I want all you guys who are on Twitter to do this. Let me find this file for me right now. There's a telephone company here in Canada called Bell. And today they are donating money towards mental health organizations here in Canada. They're donating 5 cents, not a whole lot, but for every tweet or retweet they get using hashtag BellLet'sTalk. That's BELL. Let's Talk. Every tweet or retweet they get today, up to midnight tonight, they will donate 5 cents to Canadian mental health initiatives. So if you guys could do me a huge favor, and I just cut and pasted that into the IRC chat room, today is hashtag BellLet'sTalk Day. For every tweet, retweet using hashtag BellLet'sTalk, Bell will donate 5 cents to Canadian mental health initiatives. So as a personal favor to me, would you all please do that? You don't have to include me in the tweet if you don't want to. That's not important. What's important is you get that hashtag in there and get the folks at Bell to donate money to Canadian mental health issues. So this funny tweet from someone, Paul Bassett Davies says, "If only we knew the secret behind Apple's huge profits. Sent from my iPhone after being written on my MacBook and transferred to my iPad." There's the secret to Apple's huge profits. Any emails? Yes, let's do... Brian, I got your email about Apple Pay and Starbucks. I'm going to save that one for next week's show to ask Jim about that. Thanks very much for the email. Got an email from Michael Spizak. Thanks very much for the pronunciation of your name, Michael. That's very helpful. Michael says, "I'm one of the consumers that took a serious look at just going with the iPhone 6 Plus and not refreshing my iPad. Years ago, as the director of technology for a school district, I did my job primarily from an iPad with 4G service and an Android phone. At the time, the Android phone had a larger screen size, so it was better for me. I also had a 15-inch MacBook Pro. But most of the time, I used that for high-powered projects you could not do on a tablet. But I know I can do all that on one device now, the iPhone 6 Plus. It has been a very nice experience to have the power and functionality of the previous two devices in the One 6 Plus, despite the occasional teasing from colleagues about the size of the iPhone. My old personal iPad 2 has found a loving friend with my 3-year-old son, who now uses it for all his edutainment games. Thanks, Michael Spizak. Thanks, Michael. That's a very interesting use case. And I think it's very common. I think that's what's happening with a lot of people. Your iPad 2 story is a perfect example of it. The iPad is such a good device. It's almost too good. There's no reason for folks to upgrade from an Apple. From an Apple 1, yes. Absolutely. An Apple 2, depending on how you use it. An Apple 3 or 4, no. Unless you are using the new version of the iPad for the specific newness of it, in other words, a better camera, or those kinds of things, those old iPads still work just fine. Just fine. Absolutely fine. iPad 2, yes, I'm sorry. ArcSign, Skyjacked93 says, so far there have been over 104 million Bell Let's Talk interactions. It's more than $5 million. Thanks very much, ArcSign. I didn't realize it was that much. But yeah, Michael, I think your use case is completely typical. And I don't think it's a huge worry for Apple. Yes, iPad sales are down. Tim Cook said that. They acknowledged that. But as he said, it's still a good business for the company. It's still something they're putting money and resources into. It's still something that's going to continue to make money for the company. It's not a concern. It's not like the iPod, where sales have just fallen to the floor, and understandably so. The iPad still has a place. Timothy Kane says, you were talking about the sales of the iPad being not what we usually expect from Apple devices. I feel like they had improved on the iPad so well on just their second generation and sold it for so long that until people feel like they can't use that iPad anymore, we won't necessarily get huge influxes of new buyers. They sold that iPad version longer than they have sold any generation device, save the iPod Classic. We still have an iPad 2, and it worked great under the latest iOS. Yes, so a so-called Pro version could be a catalyst to sales, but unless the good enough people feel like the iPad 2 is not working for them anymore, I don't see them upgrading iPads anytime soon. I've also been thinking on the MacBook Air, and if you consider that if the screen and battery were removed, you could have a much smaller product than today's Mac Mini. I'm wondering if that is why we get such a small update to the Mini last year, just like the slight upgrade to the Mac Pro the previous year to the cylinder Mac Pro. Having some sort of Mac Nano with the size of the current Apple TV could be an interesting concept. Would like to hear your thoughts on this, Timothy Kane. I haven't thought about that, Timothy. I don't know if... It's hard to tell whether or not these things are any kind of driver for Apple. In other words, the Mac Mini and the Apple TV. The Apple TV is a hairball for Apple because there's so much negotiating with so many different interests for the Apple TV. I don't know that we're ever going to see things like CBS on Apple TV. I think Apple TV is, from Apple's point of view, the best it can be, given what Apple's goals are for it. I do believe that at some point, inside the next year, maybe that's being optimistic, inside the next year, we are going to see an Apple TV hardware update, and that update will include the ability to play games directly on the Apple TV, or at least directly off the interweb using the Apple TV as the interface. These aren't going to be Call of Duty type games. These are going to be Monopoly and Scrabble and games where you can use your iPhone as the controller for the game. I think that's a logical place for Apple to go to jumpstart sales. I don't know if they need to be jumpstart, but certainly to goose sales of the Apple TV. As for the Mac Mini, I think the Mac Mini might just be a checkbox item for Apple. I don't think Apple is serious about the Mac Mini beyond what it is today, which is a headless desktop machine that you just hide behind. I got a Mac Mini here hidden behind a box. I don't even think about the Mac Mini. It just does what it does. I don't think there's a whole lot of effort that Apple's putting into making the Mac Mini to be a better machine in whichever way that we want it to be. Brian Monroe says Mac Minis work great for media center PCs or servers. I agree. I don't think that's what Apple needs and wants them to be. You need a desktop, there's the iMac. You need a Pro machine, there's the Mac Pro. You want something slightly cheaper and just basic, there's your Mac Mini. And if it's going to be basic, the price has to be kept down. And if you add stuff to it, you're not keeping the price down. Mosquito, the Mini works great for certain jobs. Yeah, agreed. Scott Randall, our good friend Scott Randall from the Long Island Macintosh user group. I don't know if you got my last email, but I'm including it with this one. Okay, I think the Apple Watch will sell, but not in the same quantities as the iPhone. Yeah, I agree. That's a given. Apple is not going to sell as many, at least in the first year, let's say. Apple will not sell as many iPhone or Apple Watches as they did iPhones its first year. I'll give you that. Also, I'm not yet convinced that I will want or need one, but I never say never. If it's not tied to the phone and subsidized, many people will not spend the money. More explanation of my thoughts related to this are below. Yeah, the Apple Watch will not be subsidized. You're not going to buy the Apple Watch from Verizon for 99 cents. You're paying full pull for the Apple Watch. And at least initially, again, for the first iteration, it's going to be tied very much to the iPhone. I remember the discussion of falling iPad sales. Well, anyone who thinks the iPad upgrade cycle can keep up with the iPhone or any other phone upgrade cycle is an idiot. Phones are subsidized. In fact, my carrier, Sprint, bought back our old phones for enough money to pay for our iPhone 6s. So the upgrade was essentially free. That does not happen with tablets. Next, I agree with you that the yearly upgrade cycle for Mac OS X is not necessary. I'm still using Mavericks, and before that, Snow Leopard. I skipped 2 upgrades. Now, I see nothing that I absolutely must have in Yosemite, so I will continue to wait a while. Before I actually install it as my primary OS, if ever, I will install it on an external drive and use it for a while. That way, if I really need to get something done, I can boot back into Mavericks. The way things are now, you just get used to the way the OS works, then bam, another one comes out. I kind of think as you do, upgrades every 2 years would be enough, if not better. One other thought, I think Apple should allow you to install older versions of OS X on a new Mac. The way it is now, if I was going to buy a new Mac, I would wait until Yosemite matures a bit more, or buy an older model with Mavericks on it. Regards and best wishes, Scott Randall, Long Island Macintosh User Group. I understand that idea. The problem is that becomes a tech support nightmare for Apple, Scott. If you've got a brand new MacBook Air, but you're running Snow Leopard on it, and you're having problems, and you call it Apple Tech Support, then that's not going to be a lot of fun for Apple Tech Support. So I understand why Apple does that. I also understand your frustrations. I think what Apple could do is say, go ahead and install Snow Leopard on your brand new MacBook Air. Don't call us. This is an unsupported configuration. If it breaks, don't call us until you install the OS the machine came with. I think Apple could do that. I think the market for it is so small that they're never going to do it anyway. Arcsign, Apple will sell more Apple Watches than the number of iPods in the last year when Apple reported iPod numbers. I'm guesstimating Apple will sell approximately 7 million Apple Watches. That number just came out of the top of my head. I have no clue. None whatsoever. Send me your guesses. What do you think? It'll definitely be in the millions. It'll be 5 million, 10 million. I think 7. Send me an email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know what your guesstimate for the year sales from the day Apple announces the Apple Watch sometime in this April, for 1 year later, one 12-month period of time later. What do you think Apple Watch sales numbers will be? On air at yourmaclifeshow.com. Folks, that's it for the show for tonight. Thanks very much for joining us, whether you're tuned in live or whether you're listening into the archive. As always, we love you guys for tuning into the show, and thanks very much for being with us each week. Thanks to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. If you have any questions about photography, about Apple Watch, about whatever, send them off to me at Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. So until next week, as always, I've been Shawn. I screwed that up. I've been Shawn. I screwed up twice. That's it. This is Your Mac Life. I'm out of here. See ya.